The studio lights blazed like miniature suns over the bustling set of Live with Kelly and Mark. Cameras swiveled, microphones hovered, and a small army of producers scurried across the floor, clipboard in hand. Today was supposed to be Special Guest Day, a celebration of Hollywood's most influential figures, but what actually unfolded would leave the network reeling for months. The doors swung open, and Meghan Markle entered, her usual grace tempered by a tight-lipped seriousness. She was dressed impeccably, a sleek cream blazer paired with tailored pants, her hair perfectly coiffed, but there was a noticeable tension in her shoulders. Meghan had been on countless interviews, red carpets, and live events, but something about the atmosphere here felt different. She could sense the cameras, curiosity, the host's energy, and the invisible scrutiny of millions watching at home. Kelly Ripa, radiant as always with her trademark wit, was the first to greet her. "Meghan, so glad you could join us today," Kelly chirped, extending her hand. Mark Consuelos followed with a warm smile and a gentle handshake, though there was a glimmer of curiosity, something in Meghan's demeanor that hinted this wouldn't be an ordinary appearance. "Thank you, Kelly." "Thank you, Mark," Meghan replied, her voice calm but measured. There was a hint of tension, just barely noticeable, but anyone who had seen her interviews knew to pay attention to every inflection. The show began smoothly enough. Cameras rolled on light-hearted chatter, upcoming projects, charity initiatives, fashion choices, but within minutes, the conversation shifted. Kelly, known for her playful probing, asked, "So Meghan, there's been a lot of talk about the pressures of royal life. How do you manage the media scrutiny while staying grounded?" Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly. She had anticipated questions about her royal experiences but also knew that Live thrived on sensationalism. "It's challenging," she replied carefully. "Every decision is dissected. Every moment is amplified. But I try to focus on what matters, my family, my work, and making a difference where I can." Mark leaned in, his expression curious. "Do you ever feel like you were pushed into a corner by the system itself? Like expectations were impossible to meet?" Meghan took a deep breath. "Yes. The expectations were overwhelming. And sometimes, the criticism came not just from the media, but from people who didn't understand the full story. It's complicated, and it's exhausting." Up to this point, the interview had remained civil, but the tension in the air was palpable. Kelly, sensing an opportunity for a more juicy exchange, pressed further. "Some critics have suggested that you left the royal family for fame or attention. How do you respond to that?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Meghan's composure, impeccable until now, tightened. Her hand rested lightly on the desk, but her knuckles were white. "I left to protect my mental health and the well-being of my family. Those who reduce it to fame or attention don't see the reality behind the headlines." Her words were steady but sharp, a subtle warning that the conversation was teetering on dangerous ground. Mark tried to steer the conversation back, hoping to avoid a confrontation. "Of course, everyone has their perspective. But surely, there are moments you miss from your previous life." Meghan paused. "I miss the aspects of connection, the charity work, and the sense of purpose. But not at the cost of personal freedom or safety." Kelly's tone shifted ever so slightly, a hint of challenge in her voice. "Some say you could have handled things differently, that stepping away was a dramatic move. Do you regret it?" That was the spark. Meghan's eyes locked onto Kelly's. "Regret isn't the right word. I did what I had to do to survive and protect my loved ones. I won't apologize for that." A beat of silence filled the studio. The producers in the control room exchanged nervous glances. Mark's jaw tightened subtly, sensing the shift from interview to confrontation. Kelly, usually unflappable, blinked and leaned back slightly, caught off guard by the sudden intensity. "I think it's fair to say," Meghan continued, her voice rising with controlled force, "that some questions today reflect a lack of understanding of the very real challenges faced by people in situations like mine. It's not just about drama or headlines, it's about human experience, vulnerability, and resilience." Kelly opened her mouth to reply, but Meghan, now fully in her stride, held up a hand. "I've had enough of the subtle insinuations and loaded questions. I came here to talk about my initiatives, my charity work, and the causes I care about, not to defend myself endlessly to an audience that thrives on controversy." The studio went silent. The production assistant near the floor dropped a clipboard. Cameras kept rolling, capturing every tense micro-expression. Mark and Kelly exchanged a glance, and it was clear, they had crossed a line in Meghan's eyes, whether intentionally or not. Finally, Meghan stood, her posture regal and unyielding. "I'm leaving now. I'll speak on my terms elsewhere, but not here." She turned sharply toward the exit. The studio floor felt like it had collectively held its breath as the doors closed behind her. Mark's voice finally broke the silence. "Well, that was unexpected." Kelly, still recovering, nodded slowly. "Yeah, I didn't see that coming." In the control room, the producers scrambled. "Do we cut to commercial? Do we issue a statement?" One of the floor managers whispered urgently into the headset, "Meghan's gone, she left mid-interview." Outside the studio, Meghan walked briskly toward her car, the flashes from photographers reflecting her calm, determined expression. Inside, the network began drafting their crisis response, fully aware that this clip, broadcast live, would dominate headlines globally. By evening, social media exploded. Tweets, videos, and memes circulated within minutes, labeling the incident everything from historic confrontation to Meghan storms out of live. With Kelly and Mark, opinion pieces debated who was right, who was wrong, and whether the hosts had pushed too far or Meghan had overreacted. For Meghan, however, this was never about ratings or public approval. She had drawn her line, and she would not let anyone cross it. Today, she reminded the world that her voice, her story, was hers alone to tell. And as the sun set over New York City, the storm of media speculation was just beginning. The fallout was immediate. By the time Meghan's car disappeared into the New York traffic, news outlets were already posting clips of the tense exchange. Within an hour, the hashtag Meghan walks out was trending worldwide. Tweets, Instagram Reels, and TikTok recreations poured in from millions of viewers. The public was divided. Some praised Meghan for standing her ground, others criticized her for leaving mid-interview. Inside the live studio, chaos reigned. Producers rushed to contact network executives. "We need a statement," one shouted, waving her tablet. "This is a PR nightmare." Kelly and Mark were left sitting at the desk, their usual poise replaced with visible discomfort. Kelly's smile had faded, replaced by a mix of frustration and disbelief. I didn't expect her to react that way," she admitted quietly to Mark, who rubbed his forehead. "We've interviewed countless celebrities. No one has ever walked out like that." Behind the scenes, the network began damage control. Emails were drafted, pre-recorded messages were edited, and social media teams scrambled to spin the narrative. "We need to emphasize that Meghan Markle is a valued guest," one memo read. Her departure was unexpected, but the show remains committed to open dialogue. Meanwhile, Meghan was far from worried. Sitting in the back of her car, she closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. The cameras, the lights, the questions, it had all felt suffocating. But the moment she left the studio, a sense of liberation washed over her. She had taken control of the narrative, refusing to be baited into defending herself for the entertainment of others. Later that evening, Meghan's phone buzzed incessantly. Her team had already begun responding to the media storm, carefully crafting statements that balanced firmness with diplomacy. "She stood up for herself," one assistant typed, "and we support her completely. Meghan Markle will continue to speak on her terms." The next morning, every major news outlet ran headlines. "Meghan Markle walks out of live." With Kelly and Mark, hosts left in shock. "Historic TV confrontation. Meghan refuses to answer," loaded questions. Fans divided over Meghan Markle's studio exit. Was it justified? Social media exploded with memes, opinion threads, and heated debates. Some fans praised Meghan as a symbol of strength and self-respect, while others claimed she had overreacted. Within hours, late-night talk shows were dissecting every frame of the confrontation. Clips of Meghan's piercing gaze, her calm yet firm tone, and the moment she walked out went viral. For Kelly and Mark, the day was one of reflection and damage control. Interviews on other shows followed, with both hosts trying to explain the incident without escalating the controversy. Kelly admitted, "We might have pushed a little too far. Our intention was never to upset Meghan Markle." Mark added cautiously, "It's important to remember that everyone has boundaries, and we respect hers." Despite the controversy, Meghan's popularity surged. Her message of self-respect and boundary setting resonated with millions around the world. Commentators praised her for refusing to let anyone dictate the narrative of her life, and social media influencers rallied behind her stance. Celebrities began sharing support messages, noting the courage it took to leave a live broadcast in protest of unfair treatment. But not everyone was supportive. Critics argued that a live show was not the place for Meghan to issue such a statement, accusing her of being overly dramatic or media conscious. The debate intensified as clips were analyzed, screenshots circulated, and every word scrutinized. Meghan's exit had ignited a global conversation about the treatment of women in media, celebrity privacy, and the boundaries between public and personal life. In the midst of the chaos, Meghan's team released a carefully worded statement. Meghan Markle's appearance on Live was intended to highlight her charitable work and professional projects. Unfortunately, the interview included questions that veered into personal attacks. Meghan made the decision to leave in order to maintain her dignity and focus on what matters most, her family and her work. She thanks her supporters for respecting her choice and looks forward to engaging in meaningful conversations on her own terms. The statement was immediately shared across all major news networks and social platforms. The public response was mixed, but it successfully reframed the narrative from confrontation to empowerment. In private, Meghan reflected on the event. She knew she had made a bold decision, but it was necessary. For years, her life had been dissected, criticized, and misrepresented. Today, she had reclaimed a piece of herself, proving that even in the glare of live television, she would not compromise her integrity. Back at the studio, Kelly and Mark faced a difficult conversation with executives. Plans for future interviews were reassessed, and discussions about respectful questioning and the ethics of live television intensified. Lessons had been learned. Sometimes even seasoned hosts had to confront the reality that not every celebrity would submit to probing questions without pushback. As the dust settled, the incident became more than just a TV scandal, it became a moment of cultural conversation. Meghan's decision to walk away sparked discussions about respect, boundaries, and the pressures faced by public figures. It was a reminder that even in the world of entertainment, dignity and self-respect were not negotiable. And somewhere far from the chaos, Meghan smiled. She had faced the glare of millions, endured the scrutiny of live television, and walked away on her own terms. For her, that was victory enough.